from my wonderful, oops, thank you. Okay, we're now on air, in the cloud, up in the sky, wherever we are. Along with Johnny Be Good, maybe we're on Voyager heading into the heliosphere. All right. This is January 4th and our 24th get together. Isn't that amazing? And what we're going to do is look at, what would you call it? Astronomy and art, or the artist's view of astronomy through time. And what I did from my wonderful book, whose name I forget, something like The Universe, but it's all about art. And I went back, you know me, the historian. And so the first 9 slides that we're going to look at today, we'll look at more modern ones some other time, are the more ancient ones that have some connection with the sky. So let's see the number 1, Melanie, which is the cave paintings down in Lascaux, France.
That's not
with the bull. What happened to the
show?
The computer ate our picture. Okay, they got themselves out of order, didn't they? Isn't that interesting?
Oh, no, I just hit that.
Oh, okay. So any of you that have studied prehistoric art may be familiar with these cave paintings. They're approximately 15,000 years old. No, 17,000 years old, 15,000 BC. And the interesting thing, I think, as a teacher of art, was during the war, they were discovered in the 40s, I believe, 1940s, when the war was on. But famous people like Picasso, the Nazis let him move around, and he visited the caves. And when he came out, the reporters wanted to know what he thought of this ancient art. And his response was, "We have learned nothing." So I always thought that was kind of interesting. So here we have what is known as the Hall of Bulls. By the way, they're aurochs, which are now extinct, a type of cattle. And if you, Melanie, do you have the pointer?
Yep.
Okay, this cluster of dots above the bull's shoulder, quite a few anthropologists, scientists, astronomers believe that that's a depiction, although there are only 6, of the Pleiades, M45. Ever since the beginning of sky watching, the Pleiades was a group of stars that was dominant in the thinking, used as a seasonal marker and as a pointer. Now, the Pleiades really have 7 stars, but one is kind of faint. And there's some conjecture that perhaps it was a variable star, or perhaps for some reason or other, it has shifted in magnitude over the thousands of years. But they do feel that, for a couple of reasons, when we study constellations, Taurus the bull is one of the oldest that's been around for thousands of years. In those days, connected to the spring equinox. And when we studied Taurus the bull, the red eye was Aldebaran, and above the red eye in the V shape of the constellation was the Hyades, an open cluster of stars. So here on the bull's face, around the eye, is also a cluster of dots. So some astronomers think that this is one of the earlier depictions of the winter night sky in the Northern Hemisphere. So we'll move on to the next one. Over here, yeah. It's known as the Nibra sky disk. It's about 1 foot in diameter, made of bronze with gold leaf. It was discovered in Germany in 1999 by illegal looters. You know, the guys with the bing, 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 bing to find metal in the ground. And they snuck it out of the country, but the Swiss police caught them in 2002 And so now it's in some museum, I forget where. But once again, the sun, a crescent moon. You'll see over here on the left, there's a missing gold band, like on the right. We're not sure about the one on the bottom, but that cluster of 2, 4, 7 stars, once again, they think it's the Pleiades. And after astrophysicists, that's a mixture of an astronomer and a physicist, they have to study twice as much. They found where it was buried, a hillside with a view to the east. 2 hills separated at, let me look here, get my beep, 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 82 degrees between the missing band and the one on the right. And if you hold the disc up at this hillside point, off in the distance to the east, the left one marks the summer sunset at solstice time, and the one on the left marks the angle off to the southeast where the sun rises at the winter solstice. Let me see if I got that right. Sunset, sorry guys. So they were looking west, sunset. So I think that's a beautiful, and then they say, when was this done? 1800 BC, almost 4,000 years ago, during the Bronze Age in Europe, is the oldest found mapping of the sky. So it's sort of like a Stonehenge that you can hold in your hands. All righty, the next one, we're jumping to the 11th century, and we're going to Phoenix, Arizona. And it's a petroglyph created by the Hohokam culture, one of the 3, along with the Anasazi, that inhabited the Southwest way back to roughly 2,000 years ago. Now, what a petroglyph is, a little bit, Bob's not here today, a little bit of chemistry. A rock is exposed to the oxygen and other minerals in the, or elements in the air, like sulfur perhaps. And so the surface of the rock, the minerals in the rock combine with some of the minerals in the air. An example would be iron and oxygen, and we have rusty surfaces. Well, in the Southwest, the surface combination darkens the original color of the rock. So what you have to do is take a file or a chipper and a hammer and knock out your design, peck it out, and you have a lighter design coming through the dark surface. And that's what a petroglyph is. And I have to look at the dates now here. The 11th century, and they believe, they're pretty sure, that this is a record of a supernova that happened in May of 1006. And here, Tony, is a supernova, which, by the way, was very, very bright, but I forgot to write down how bright. They could see it for quite several months in the daytime sky. And it was located, let me look at my notes, in the constellation Lupus, which is just underneath Scorpio. And you guys who went in the summertime up on my hill, when we found Scorpio in the sky, for us up here at 41 degrees north, it's quite low in the sky, and Lupus is even below it. So it's, you know, in the haze to the south. But of course, Phoenix is further south. But here we think is Scorpio. So once again, it's a depiction of an event with everything in relationship to each other correctly, as you would see it in the sky there. All righty. The next one is the creation of light in the 12th century, a Christian work of art. Mosaic, what a gold. Yeah, that one. All righty. 12th century. So that's in the 1100s. It's a mosaic. So the colored pieces probably are clay tiles. The beautiful gold background, they're called golden tesserae. And how they were made was 2 thin pieces of glass. You put the gold leaf between them like a sandwich, set them together with that in the middle, put them in the oven. The glass fuses, the gold is stuck in the middle, and it creates a beautiful sparkling light. Now, by the 1100s, the West had totally lost this artistic ability. They didn't know how to do it. This is in a church in Sicily. And if you know your history, Sicily and several of those other islands in North Africa were all under Islamic control for hundreds of years. However, the Arabs were kicked out of Sicily in 1091, but the king in the following century had this conception in the church of this beautiful series of mosaics telling the Bible stories. So he asked for the Arab and Byzantine, mostly Greek, skilled mosaic workers to come back and create these stories. And so here we have God creating the universe with the earth in the middle, and then the sun and the moon being placed, and then the stars around in the background. If anybody has any questions, just speak up. I can rattle on. All right, all you horoscope people, we are going to look at a Islamic horoscope from the 15th century. So we moved up to the 1400s. Can we make that bigger? Because I wanted to point out some of the imagery. Okay, whoa. All right, let's see, just shrink just a wee bit. Yeah, okay. I find Islamic art fascinating. Here we have a page of, who was he? I forget. I just wrote down, it was a prince in Persia. He was in charge of a huge part of Persia. And he, in his older lifetime, decided he would hire an artist, or several of them really, to do his birth chart, have a horoscope just for him. And this is the result. We have in the 4 corners Islamic angels. Muslims believe in angels also, holding up the universe in the 4 corners. Let's see, what else do they have in there? Alrighty, squint. Help me out here. In the first ring, I believe, they had the signs of the zodiac. Ready? And then the next ring, the phases of the moon, with the full moon at the top and the new moon at the bottom. And there were 28 days in a month. And finally, around the outer rim, Islamic constellations, some of which would have been similar to ours, others perhaps different or extra or different names. Okay, so once again, paper, ink, probably some gold foil, and very stylized and very beautiful. And I'm not sure what's in the middle there. I'm guessing, I do know. In that middle circle, series of circles, is the moon, the sun, and the 5 visible naked eye planets. So as you know, a horoscope all depends on your birth date, the time and the date, and then where all the basic 5 planets were in the sky, in what constellation, what the moon was doing. So I can get quite a complicated mathematical treatise. And I'm sure whoever was in charge of this had tons of books that he had to do researching in. Okay, next one is the Islamic map of the universe. And oh, wait a second. Dude. Did I get the wrong one there?
Yeah. This is number 7.
Okay, the Islamic map of the universe. Which one's that then? No, that's behind him, but they're not in order anymore. What's that one?
Oh.
What?
Yeah, do you know?
Okay, hang on a second. All right, we're do. All righty. Okay, we got these mixed up here. That's the computer's fault. We had them all in order and somehow it bounced them around and we picked the wrong one. Everything I just said applied to the Islamic map of the universe. This is the horoscope. All righty, so we'll go back to that 15th century prince in Persia. And once again, we have in this ring, I believe, the 12 signs of the zodiac. And in the middle, I'm guessing, are the rings of the planets and the sun and the moon. Okay. Now we'll jump up to America, South America, Mexico, with the Aztecs. And it seems that whatever culture you're from, comets were bad news. So what happened to, here he is up here. When Cortez arrived, when did he arrive? In 1519, he brought with him some artists and other people, and I forget the name of the man, but he did many, many images, pictures of the Aztecs and their landscape. And there was a comet. Let's see, when did the comet come? I think about 2 years before Cortez landed. So around 1517, a comet went by. And here we have a picture of Montezuma II, the Marine Corps song, from the halls of Montezuma to the halls of Tripoli. Anyway, he's a little concerned. He's a little bit worried. And he should have been, because within 2 years of Cortez showing up, brought smallpox. So there was the comet, there was disease, and then the very sudden collapse, total collapse of the Inca Empire. And scholars kind of like, wow, that's about the quickest collapse in history. What's going on there? And the suggestion is that they were fatalists, these people.
Mary Lou,
Yeah,
I thought you said Aztec. Aztec or Inca? I'm confused.
the Aztecs.
Okay.
Yeah, they were in Mexico. The Incas
Yeah.
were down in Peru.
That's what I thought, because I read
Yeah.
about it.
Yep, thanks. So being a somewhat fatalistic people that believed in omens, you know, with everybody getting sick and dying, and then this comet coming through, and then Cortez with his men on horses, they pretty much just gave up, rolled over, and oh, it reminds me of Afghanistan. Rolled over and died. Gave the keys over to the conquerors without any fighting. So, alrighty. Then 2 more. That next one is Blake. That strange one. This one. Now, Blake in the 18th century was a British philosopher, writer, artist, obviously. This is called The Ancient of Days, done in 1794 at the end of the century. The traditionalists suggested this was a paint because he didn't really explain it. This was God with his compass parting the clouds, creating the light, and creating the earth. But there's a new theory floating around, which I think is interesting, which says, no, this is not God. It's a character in Blake's writings called Irizon, Irizon. And Blake, evidently, I didn't know this, he really rejected the Enlightenment of the 1700s, and Newton in particular. He really felt that trying to understand the universe through math and science just lost so much stuff. He was very opposed to that. He was also opposed to a corrupt church. So some suggest this is this character trying to encompass evil in the world. So I don't know, but it is a lot of the young kids in college these days, Blake would be a poster on their wall. All righty, and the last one from the Inuit up in the north, their moon goddess mask, probably done in the 19th century, made of wood and feathers. And let me see here. It's suggested that the face, which is wood in the middle, is the face of the goddess. The sort of square wood around is the air. And the hoops of bark, twigs, branches, are the various levels of the cosmos. And the 7 feathers, probably, once again, the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets that are visible. Now, the Inuit live in the north where they have approximately 4.5 months that they don't see the sun. But the moon is always there and is considered a benevolent deity. The Inuit believe that the earth was flat, like so many other people in the world. The moon also they saw as flat, icy disk, and the sun as a ball of fire. And their new year would begin in the spring whenever the sun first rose above the horizon after the long, dark winter. And since different groups lived at different latitudes, the new year was not a constant date, but depended on your latitude. So that was my selection for today. So let's look at what other people got. Who signed in first? Debbie, why don't we start with you? Wake up.
Okay. Well, I don't have lots of information. I
That's
just
all right.
love this picture. I know when it was painted and by whom.
All right, and why you liked it. Not that one, the boats. Okay, here's Debbie's choice.
I think, no, you can't really see the info there. It was painted by a French painter named Claude Joseph, and I think it's Vernet, but I'm not exactly sure, Vernet. It's called Seaport by Moonlight. There it is. And I love seascapes anyway, ocean views. I love the moon in this one because it's just beautiful there, right off center in the painting. It sort of provides the light to see everything else that's occurring other than what's in the bottom right-hand corner there, because they have their own firelight. But a lot of the moonlight pictures, I'm always drawn to the moon first. I see that before I see anything else that's going on. And I think it's beautiful.
When was it painted, Debbie?
1771.
Before the revolution.
Mhm.
Great. When you talked to me on the phone this morning about it, I made a guess that it was Dutch because they in the 1600s, I think, began really doing a lot of not just landscape paintings, but what was called sky paintings with clouds. Notice the sky is almost 3/4 of the picture on the
Mhm.
left side anyway. And the Dutch being by the sea and important in trade, a lot of harbor scenes with boats as well as the sky. So, all right, beautiful. Who's next, Sandy?
Let me get Sandy's up. There was Sandy's.
We're finding it. Can we blow
Oh,
it
wait.
up a little?
Let me go back here.
Can you all see it?
Mhm. Pretty.
Okay. So Sandy, tell us about it. It's a photograph, you said. We can't hear you. Sandy. How can we tell her we can't hear her?
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, I don't know. I mean, pretty sure they're all photographs, but she found this when I was drawn to Aurora things after our trip, which to Finland. And this particular picture is in the where the painted rocks are in the northern peninsula of Michigan. And she went out there to see the Milky Way. She said Jeff and I were did a ferry cruise around these shores, which are incredibly beautiful. We were able to do it at sunset. And I have a lot of pictures of that, but she went out hiking a couple miles at night to the spot to look at the Milky Way. And this is what she found instead, was a surprise that wasn't predicted.
Now, wait a second. Did you mention something about Polaris? So is the North Star in this picture as well?
No, she went to look at the Milky Way.
But I thought you said these
No.
12 photographs were from some contest involving the North Star. No?
No.
Oh.
Just the Aurora. They're all Aurora pictures.
Oh, okay.
Well, all over the world. Yeah. And but this particular one I thought was close to home for me.
Mm-hmm. Are they called the painted rocks because of the geology, not that they've been painted upon?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
They haven't been painted upon, but they're all, you can see a little bit to the right. There actually are all those different colors. And when at sunset, pictures that I have at sunset, the colors are even more
Intense?
intense, yes. So I like lighting.
Yes. Well, that's beautiful. If I remember correctly, nitrogen produces greenish northern lights and oxygen reddish or pink.
Okay.
Okay, who's next? Let's do Melanie. We'll give Jordan a chance to, if he may still be hunting.
Don't buy it.
You gotta get underneath there. Come on, there we go.
All right.
So this is a painting by a Japanese artist named Hiroshi, I think.
It's here, whatever it looks like, it sounds like.
Hiroshi.
Yeah.
There was no date on this particular painting, but he painted between 1820 and 1858. But a lot of his paintings have the moon in them. This is called The Moon Behind a Waterfall, and I fell in love with it. He was a contemporary of Hokusai, a few years after Hokusai. part of the Edo movement. Edo, is that how you say that?
And that was
Edo.
landscape, right?
Yep.
Yep. Mhm.
But yeah, I absolutely love this painting. Or I think it's actually a woodcut.
That's
A-
very a
a
print from
print,
a
yeah.
woodcut.
A print, yeah.
Germany and Japan were the two, I think, cultures most famous for woodcuts and prints.
I made it my I love it so much. I made it my screen on my phone.
The West really and the East, there are artistic traditions really were separate from one another, and there
Mhm.
wasn't a lot of, what do you call that, cross-semination or knowledge of each other until around the time of Vincent van Gogh. So we're talking about the 1880s, and then Japan or China and Japan, one or the other or both, began to ship China ware, dishes to the West, selling them porcelain, because they knew how to make porcelain. We really didn't, and we really wanted the porcelain. But they wrapped them up in like old newspapers and old prints, whatnot, discards. And so people began opening it. You know how it is when you move and you unpack, you sit there and, oh, I've got to read the paper. And all of a sudden became aware of the Japanese, a totally different way of seeing space
Mhm.
and balancing things in their pictures. In the West, I tend to say it's like the Christmas tree. Whatever your subject matter is, and usually it was a portrait
Mhm.
of a god or a king. We didn't get around to commoners until really late
Right.
1700s or so. Everything was centered. And then there was sort of the periphery. But in Oriental art, the Japanese art, it's usually always asymmetric.
Mhm.
So your moon is not sitting fairly in the middle. It's up there in the corner. And there's the waterfall sort of on the left side. And there's a lot of empty space sitting over on the right side. Of course, you could be a cynic and say, well, that was because that's where they put their identification. But that's not why.
Van Gogh actually copied two of his
Yes,
paintings.
yes. That one or his?
No, not this particular one, but two others.
I know he did.
He
Yep.
copied two of
Yep,
his
he
paintings.
was fascinated by it.
But I went on a little rabbit hole with his artwork. He
That's the idea.
he has the moon in quite a few of his paintings. So
Yes, he does. And stars.
and he does a lot with birds too.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Okay.
birds, when we do
When
bird
we do
stuff.
birds. All right. Okay, who's left?
Rima's. We have
Okay,
Rima.
let's wait. Jordan, have you found anything yet?
I think so.
Okay, we'll show Rima's and then we'll do yours.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to talk about Rima?
I can talk a little bit about it. This is a famous Impressionist painting by Monet, M-O-N-E-T, who worked, let's say 1860s through, Monet lived a long time, up until after the First World War. Lost a son, I think, in the First World War. And you can see why the critics of the time, when the Impressionists first hit the scene, let's say in the 1870s, coming out of a 400-year tradition of basically realism, the art critic looked at something like this, and you know what they said. The man can't paint.
Right.
What's this? My 5-year-old could do it, those kind of things. But of course, what Monet was trying to do was capture the transience of life.
Mhm.
Anybody that has spent any time on the water, even if it's not a sunny day, the constant shifting of the light off the water, or in a forest, the light filtering through the leaves and shimmering and moving and shifting and changing in color. So that's really, the Impressionists were kind of trying to capture the light and how we saw it, how we perceived it. So what was this one called?
Impression Sunrise.
Oh, Impression Sunrise. Maybe that's
Right on
where
the
they got
nose.
the name. All righty. So Jordan, what did you find?
I was looking at one called the Great Comet of 1680 over Rotterdam.
Okay,
All righty.
let me.
She's gonna try and find it. Who do you have the artist?
I can't say his name. He's Dutch.
Spell it.
What was the year? 18.
Or 1680. I think there was a NASA link if you just looked up the title of it. I think it was the second one under the Wikipedia one.
Is that it? That looks like a photograph.
Who is it? Oh gosh, why is it so small?
Well, while she's hunting, you talk a little bit about it, Jordan.
Okay. I really liked it just from the visual of it, but some things I thought were interesting was that they said that the comet went really close to the sun, so it's pretty bright when it was out. And there's another thing to point out, but I can point out when the picture's there.
Is this it?
Yeah,
Is
that's
that-
it.
Okay.
They
Alright.
have like crosses, so I thought that they were holding crosses, but apparently that's a cross staff, which was predated the sextant for measuring angles, which I thought
Oh,
was interesting.
okay. Why off the top of your head, Jordan, this is kind of unfair, and maybe anybody can, if he can't answer it, anybody chime in. Why have people in general, but maybe in the West in particular, feared comets? Why do they always think of them as harbingers of disaster or evil or whatever?
I'm not sure.
Anybody? Well, it goes back way past Ptolemy into ancient history, where human beings think of Plato, the perfect circle, the music of the spheres, harmony and order, and everything was regular and everything went around in circles. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, so to speak, maybe that's where that phrase came from. Out of the blue comes this damn comet and is not going in a circle, and it's not predictable, and they can't figure, and so therefore it's evil. If God is connected to harmony and the good and the circle, then anything that doesn't fit that has got to be the opposite. So anyway. Did you all see the comet that suddenly popped up last summer that astronomers weren't expecting?
Was that Neowise?
Yeah, I think, right.
I did see it.
Yeah, I think we all saw it. So, okay. Any questions on, did we see everybody's? That's
Mhm.
okay. And Bob and Ann didn't send anything in?
No.
Okay. I have my assignment then for next time. I want everybody, if you haven't already, I'm sure most of you have access to going back. If you missed a news event on TV, and it should be on TV, you should be able to see it, not just like me, hear it on the radio. I'll go back to Christmas Day when NASA launched the Webb's telescope, and we all had our fingers crossed that it wouldn't blow up on the launching pad. Well, that was back when, a week and a half ago, and it's still chugging along, doing this, that, and the other thing. So and we're going to talk about basically it the next time. So here are your assignments. Let me see. Who is this? I want you all to tune in to NASA. What would it be? Their app, Melanie? Webpage?
Yeah, they're right on their main page, I think.
Their main page. I'm sure they have the updates from the 25th on through, till another 2 weeks, what's happening. So I want you to all kind of like look at that. Then in particular, okay, Melanie, Let's see, Chris is not here today. Rima, no, not Rima. I'll give it to Regina when she comes in. She's not here today either. I want Regina to talk about its orbit. What do we mean by the orbit? Did it start to go straight up? And then did it make a bend? Did it turn around? What did it do? What is it doing to get to its final destination? So Regina's going to talk about the orbit. Melanie, essentially a few days ago, they opened the shield.
Mhm.
Now, what is that? How big is it? Why do they need it? Okay. Rima is going to talk about, in the next few days, the mirrors, which are also going to be, so far so good. Everything's worked. They haven't had any glitches yet. And when considering how complicated this is, it's a miracle. So Rima is going to talk about the mirrors. What are their shapes? How many are there? How big are they? What's going on? Jordan, you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the main parts of this telescope is going to be infrared. So it's not just going to see visibly and send that back to us, but it's going to see in the infrared wavelength. What is it seeing? Why is that going to be important? Bob and Ann aren't here, but I kind of, partly because of Bob, his chemistry background, I stuck him with, I think, the hardest. They said on the news that it was headed out, I believe, to the second
Yeah.
Lagrange
Yeah.
point.
What is that?
What is that? I'm assuming Lagrange was a man and an astronomer, and he has something to do with this. Well, it's a million miles
It's a
up there.
million miles.
It's a
yeah.
million miles up there, but it's not the only one.
Yeah.
But that's where they wanted to park, at the second Lagrange point up in the sky, a million miles up.
And I was reading on NASA and I was trying to figure out, like, they would say it's going to L2.
Right.
They kept calling it L2 or the second Lagrange point. But I was like, but what is that?
But I know.
And they wouldn't explain it to me. Like,
I know. So we're going to find out. And anybody who doesn't want to wait for Bob and Ann's answer, you can look it up. Debbie, this particular telescope has a series of things it wants to learn, to study. What are they? So what is its main purpose? And Mary Lou, who's not here today, I got to circle these people and give them phone calls. She's going to talk about the red shift, which is going to somehow a little bit connect to Jordan's topic of the infrared wavelength. All righty. Does anybody happen to know what its main purpose is when it gets out there and parks at L2? I can see a little guy with the flashlight, you know. What's that? I can't read yours.
oh, I have its primary goal and its 4 main research goals.
Ah.
But see, look, L2 orbit. Like, come on, NASA.
So, okay. Any questions? Any comments?
What about me?
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
Sandy.
Sandy.
Okay. Doot. Let me think for a minute. All righty. Just listen for a minute, Sandy, and then we'll do it so you can write it down. If I tell you that the galaxies near us, like the Andromeda Galaxy, is a fairly young galaxy, and that the galaxies at the far end of the visible universe are the old ones that were formed at the beginning of time, what can we learn by studying those two, the young and the old galaxies? And in a sense, not to answer anybody's question, but part of the purpose, Debbie, is to study the linear difference between young galaxies and the ancient galaxies. What does that tell us? Think of if you study fossils from the ancient to the modern, what does that tell us about life? So in the same way of thinking, what does that tell us about the universe? So you see, astronomy isn't just science, it's also philosophy and metaphysics. You know, those good fun subjects. Now, Jordan and Mary Lou, you'll be talking about infrared and the redshift. You still there, Jordan?
Yeah.
Okay. I want you, Jordan, to think about do you know what the Doppler effect is?
I've heard of it, but I don't think I remember what it is.
All right. Have you ever been stuck at a train crossing? The red lights come on, the gates come down, and the train is coming down the track from your left, going to pass in front of you, and then head down the track to the right. And he's blowing his whistle.
Yeah.
How does that sound change? Can you do it?
No. It's been
Or
a
the-
while since I've heard the train whistle.
How does it shift in tone or frequency or
I
sound
can't
or pitch?
recall how it changes. I'm not
Huh?
sure how it changes.
Not sure. All right, you live in a city. There are police cars and ambulances roaring by. You're walking down the street and a police car goes by or the ambulance. Same thing. If their siren is on as they're coming towards you and then past you, the sound changes. I want you to research that, and that will be the Doppler effect. Tell us what's going on. Why is your ear hearing a different sound as they go by?
Okay.
And then, as an astrophysicist, you apply that same principle to light waves. So whatever's going on with the sound waves, the redshift involves the light waves as the light either moves towards you or away from you.
Okay.
All right. What time is it?
Is 1:56.
What?
1:56.
2 o'clock?
Yeah.
We have gone way over time, guys.
No, we still have a couple minutes, and before we go, remember you asked me to look up Yule, the Yule log?
Oh, the Yule log from last time. Yes.
I know what it is now. The word Yule was taken from Scandinavian term for the old winter solstice festivals.
For the which?
Yule,
For the what?
it's a Scandinavian term, and it was the term they used for their winter solstice
Okay.
tradition. They called them Yule. So Norway took the Yule, and their tradition was during the winter solstice and through Christmas, the 12 days of Christmas, they would go out and find a large tree, one that they would then bless before. Usually a whole family went out together. They cut it down. They performed a little ceremony. They dragged it back to their house. The biggest part of the log they put into the fireplace. It was lit with the remains of the previous year's Yule log that had been saved in the house away from danger outside. They lit the new one, and then they burned it through until the 12th day. And then what was left, they saved for the following year to light their new one that they then went out and got during the solstice, but lit during the 12 days.
Okay. And as I jokingly said to someone, maybe my daughter, when we were hauling wood last weekend, and I said, just imagine back in the day you had to use stone axes. And she kind of looked at me and scowled. And then I said, no, I think what they did is they had a big fireplace and they just shoved the end in and burnt it down, kept shoving it in. They didn't bother cutting it up into logs.
Yeah, they didn't, but how did they close the door?
Well,
They dragged a tree in and
maybe they didn't.
they burned it from one end as far as it went
Well-
until the 12 days ended.
Yeah,
Then they didn't burn it anymore.
yeah.
It
I
was
don't know.
done.
Did they cut it up or was it? It took up the whole room.
I don't know, but now we have just that tiny little piece, the
Yep.
symbolic one that you put in the fireplace.
Mhm.
They actually took a tree. But it originated in Norway. They were the ones to have the Yule log
Okay.
itself.
And that's
anyway.
interesting because I think England, at least by the Victorian age, had kind of taken that tradition over.
Right. Well, it was all Northern Europe
Yeah.
and probably came down into Europe after. I mean, because this was very early that it first started.
Mhm.
But anyway, that's it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Loose ends. And at 2:00, of course, we end at 2:00. I was thinking we went over another hour.
Oh, no.
Okay. So you all have your homework. I don't have a TV, so I just, in my imagination from what I hear on the radio, envision what's going on up there as it approaches 1,000,000 miles away. Somebody could double check how fast it's going. I forgot. But anyway, another list.
I don't think I wrote
Oh,
it
she
down.
wrote that down already.
I don't think I wrote it
Oh, you
down.
didn't go. Well, you don't tell them because they will have to try and figure that out. All right. Well, folks, we're finally getting some cold weather, although not a lot of snow to protect the garden. So we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Jordan.
Stop recording. Okay.
Give me a call tonight.